Persona 4 Arena Ultimax is easily one of my favorite fighting games of all time. It has only gotten even better for me now that I'm a bigger Persona fan. The thing I love the most about P4AU is how every character in this game feels unique with their own individual mechanics that make the characters feel more expressive and creative. I want to go through P4AU's roster and highlight what I love about it. Before I really get into the character specific mechanics, there are two mechanics I want to bring up that really complements their playstyle: status elements and persona displacement. Just like in the mainline games, characters can inflict status elements on the opponents. Shock stops characters from moving normally, only restricting them to rolling and short hops. Ice freezes you completely and stops all movement options, and the opponent has to mash out to break out of it. Poison inflicts unscaled damage over time. Charm drains the opponent's meter while the person who inflicted it gains meter. Panic reverses your controls. Rage increases your damage but you can't block. Fear turns every hit into a fatal counter state. And Mute locks you from using your persona moves. Almost everyone in the cast has a move that inflicts a status element, and a number of characters use these ailments as a central part of their game plan. For example, Kanji is a low mobility character, and as a grappler, he needs a way to get in. Kanji has multiple moves that shocks the opponent to restrict their movement so he can get in or keep them in place for his win condition. Yukari has arrow shots that inflicts mute, which is very strong against characters who use their personas for DPs, meaning they have to hold her 50-50 mix afterwards. Elizabeth can use fear to get insane damage and better routes on her combos, no pun intended, make the opponent fear getting thrown because you can't tech throws when inflicted with fear. Mitsuru relies on freezing the opponent for her most optimal combo routes. While status elements may not be as important for all the characters, I love how the cast has at least one move that can inflict them and be able to incorporate it in their game plan. Another essential mechanic of P4AU is persona displacement. This is actually not talked about in the game's tutorial, so it's sort of a secret mechanic. How it works is your C and D buttons are your persona moves where you attack with said persona. If that attack moves your persona forward in any way, wherever your persona was last displaced, and if it's still on the screen for those frames, the persona will stay where it was and you can perform another attack with it. Everyone, except Sho, are able to use persona displacement, but there are characters who have persona displacement be a key part of their game plan and neutral. Yukiko, Elizabeth, and Margaret are the best examples of this. Margaret is like the prime representative of the persona displacement system, having 3 personas and using them all for combos and pressure. Elizabeth and Yukiko use persona displacement to enhance their zoning capabilities and be able to perform full screen pressure. It's kind of insane that some characters are able to do full screen pressure and combos, but P4AU allows for that, and I think it brings a unique flair on how characters can be controlled. Characters also have their differences in terms of how much health they carry and how many persona cards they have, because some characters use their personas more than others. Characters like Kenanaki Hiko don't use their personas a lot, but a character like Yukiko or Elizabeth uses their personas a lot, so they get way more persona cards to use. Now that we gotten the universal mechanics out of the way, now we can get to the individual character mechanics, and there is a lot to go through, so I'm gonna try and give a Spark Notes version of what the persona casts are capable of. Installs are one of the more popular things that characters have in this game. Yosuke, for example, has Sukukaja. This install makes the fastest character in the game even faster. His moves comes out faster, and he has property changes like being able to bat dash and air dash other moves he couldn't before, and he can even special cancel. Yosuke is also the only character who can perform multiple special attacks in the air, so Sukukaja enhances this even more. Chie gets Power Charge, a super that buffs your attack damage, and she can do it multiple times to buff her damage to insane levels, sometimes even TOD levels.
Oh, I died. Please don't. Oh no!
Yukiko's is all about building her fire level. She has a special move dedicated to buffing her fire level, which increases the damage of her specials and her supers, and gives her an extra move in the process, which is that fucking bird that I hate. She also has Fire Break, which makes her fire moves unblockable, where she could do some really evil setups if the conditions are met. Teddy is an item throw character, so all of his items are the big gimmicks and he has a large variety of them. From roll-west that turns into missiles and fly in different trajectories and speed, solar that gives you meters and cure ailments, mystery food X that inflicts you with 3 of the most dangerous ailments, the oil drum, the motorcycle, the buckets. There are so many items that forces you to play his game. Naruto's Fate Counter is the second most controversial unique mechanic in this game, where the opponent is now a ticking time bomb, and if Naruto hits you with moves that brings down the Fate Counter, it doesn't matter how much health you have. Once you get hit with Hamon and Mudon when your Fate Counter is at 0, you are dead. Itachi is the prime comeback character with the Heat Riser and the Magasu Mandala buff. Heat Riser increases his damage and defense, and Magasu Mandala adds status effects to all of Adachi's persona attacks and supers. And they hurt. A lot. Marie is a bundle of silliness, so her mechanic is the weather changing every round. And you know, considering this game takes place before the golden epilogue where she's the weather person, it's a neat prelude to her future. Anyways, what about her changing the weather that makes her so unique? Each weather change gives her a buff each round. Sunny buffs her shell super, Cloudy makes her cloud special now put out 2 clouds, and her electric based attacks now shocks the opponent. Rainy regenerates her health and more arrows come out from the Shining Arrows super. Snowy recovers SP and now one of her card supers freezes the opponent. This is the only game I've ever seen do this type of thing with changing conditions every round, and I think that's pretty cool. Akihiko's Cyclone Meter is one of my favorite mechanics. A lot of his attacks are called Cyclone moves, and by cancelling these moves into each other, it raises by a level. The higher the level raises, more of his moves start getting different properties such as putting you into a crumple state, wall bouncing the opponent, and adding more hits to your super. Labris has the axe level mechanic where it increases when Labris attacks with her axe and decreases when she gets hit or does nothing. Each axe level raises her attack power, with Red Axe being the most dangerous because now her attacks have more hit stun, counter hits are always fatal counters, and there's added chip damage. She also has one super that spends all of her axe levels, and if you get hit with it while she's at Red Axe, well, Ken and Shadow Lapras are the 2 primary puppet characters. Ken's C and D buttons are now reserved to control Koromaru instead of the persona, and Koromaru has his own health bar that you need to preserve if you want to use him in battle. Shadow Lapras' puppet is her persona, Asterius. Asterius is always out alongside Shadow Lapras, and you can control him independently in conjunction with Shadow Lapras. Elizabeth is a toned down boss character. She has Invigorate, which passively increases her meter, One-Hand Sword Master that she gains a level from 2C, which buffs Thanatos' sword attacks. She also is the only character where her special attacks actually get stronger when she's in Awakening. She can also force herself into Awakening with Mind Charge, and getting hit by those specials hurt. Junpei, out of anyone here, has the most unique mechanic I've ever seen in a fighting game, and I can't decide whether or not it's genius or downright stupid. It's a lot more intricate than how I'm about to describe it, so I recommend checking the Dust Loop. But essentially, Junpei is playing baseball mid-fight to reach his victory cry win condition. Every hit he gets with his bat, he earns a base, which gives him a run. You need 10 runs to reach victory cry, and the install gets stronger with every 10 run interval. You can earn a ball by making your opponent block a bat attack. 4 balls means 1 base. If you whiff a bat attack, you get hit or you get thrown, you earn a strike. 3 strikes means you're out and your base counter resets. Did you get all that? I hope you did. Now, what's the big reward for earning victory cry? Well, he gets to regenerate his health, he gets passive meter, an attack and defense buff, he gets access to clean hits, which gives his attacks more hit stun, which leads to more damage and combos. Great reward, but the way to achieve it deeply holds Junpei back from being a good character. And then there's Sho. The only unique thing about Sho is that there's nothing unique about him at all because he has no persona. You know what is unique though? You showing me that you enjoy my content by hitting the like button on this video, which greatly helps my channel. Show me that you want to see more of my content by subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon so the notifications can show you my next upload. Just kidding. Not really. Please subscribe. Alright, let's talk about easily the worst mechanic in this game, Shadow Frenzy. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it with this one. I genuinely think Shadow Frenzy is horrible, and it's one of the main reasons I eventually stopped playing because of its implementation. Shadow characters were added to the Ultimax version of Persona 4 Arena. Most of the cast has a Shadow variant with only a few exceptions, and they technically bumped the roster up by way more characters than we initially see in the character roster. So, what makes these Shadows unique? Characters who were in the previous vanilla version of Arena, the Shadows get their old auto combos back. Shadows gets an increase of 1000 health except for Shadow Kanji and Shadow Akihiko, and they have access to their awakening supers from the jump. However, Shadows don't have access to awakening buffs like the extra defense on 150 meter, they're stuck at 100 meter. Shadow also naturally do 10% less damage compared to the other characters. Instead of one more burst, Shadow characters have access to Shadow Frenzy, and this is where it all goes downhill. Shadows can enter Frenzy, and no matter how much meter the character have, it starts going down until the meter hits 0. More meter means the Frenzy lasts longer. When Frenzy is activated, you are allowed to special cancel your moves into each other along with your DP, and your normals are now jump cancelable. The scariest thing about this too is that the opponent is unable to burst during Shadow Frenzy. This is where my frustrations start coming in. Shadow characters essentially turn this game into a horror game, and getting hit by a Shadow with Frenzy is the jump scare. God forbid you are down around against a Shadow character and they still have their burst. You are now under a lot of pressure because you know if you lose 2 interactions, by the third one, they're gonna pop the Shadow Frenzy and you are most likely dead. Now you have to watch the movie on you dying unless the player drops the combo.
You fucking...
I also don't like the power creep aspects of the Shadow characters. There are Shadows that are just straight up better than their normal counterparts due to what the Shadow mechanics offer. Yosuke does generally weak damage and short combos, but Sukukaja buffs his combo damage, but he needs to be an awakening for that. Shadow Yosuke has Sukukaja from the jump, so he can now reliably do more damage and close out rounds easier because of this. It can be a challenge getting Junpei to his victory cry win condition. Well, with Shadow Junpei, if he can get that one good hit, he can spend his frenzy early and reach those 10 runs quickly if he gets the combo. Now Junpei is a viable character throughout the whole match. There is one character who perfectly exemplifies the horrors of the Shadow mechanic, and that's Shadow Naruto. The fake counter was already scary, but now it gets even scarier because she now has instant access to her Raid Awakening Super. The B version of that super removes 2 fates per shot. Usually by the second interaction, once Shadow Naruto gets that hit, you're getting blasted by the Raid Super and now you're at 0 fate easily. Which means...
now you're gonna pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Another layer of this messed up situation is if she still has that frenzy available and she catches you slipping, one hit and she could just pop the frenzy to use Hama and Mood on. You are dead. Being a Shadow doesn't always benefit everyone. I spoke about the more egregious examples and there are way more that I didn't bring up in this video, but there are characters where the Shadow mechanics really don't benefit them. Shadow Rise doesn't do any good damage even with Frenzy, and her Awakening Super, which is the DDR Super, doesn't have a lot of practical uses. Shadow Kanji gets hurt due to the 10% less damage, and the loss of the Awakening defense buff, which makes his 11,500 health not even mean much. Also, due to how his auto combo is, he loses combos that normal kanji is capable of doing. I think the shadow mechanic overall hurts P4AU with how heavily unbalanced it is. The concept of canceling your specials together is such a sick idea, but the execution was very poor. I think Ultimax would have been better off just not having the shadow mechanic at all. Even though I don't play much anymore, P4AU I can still say is one of my favorite fighting games. Now you're probably wondering, are there people still playing this decade Euro game? Yes! P4AU still has a very active player base which you, yes you, can take part in and by joining the Persona Fight Club Discord server. If you have the game on PlayStation or PC, you have tons of people to play some games with, and they host weekly to monthly tournaments. The game also has rollback netcode, so you can at least enjoy playing online in stable connections. If you want to know more about P4AU from someone who actually cares about the game, I recommend checking Yanderegogeta's video Ultimax is Not Dead. Also check out his other Persona content, it's really good. It doesn't matter how old this game is, if there's still a player base for it, it's still alive. Ultimax will always be around.